So hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I hear it's really hot in DC, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us on a spring afternoon. We're going to be focusing largely on Pennsylvania today, although we are going to detour into Virginia later in the program and hear about our Virginia kickoff. And Jim is going to be presenting some information as he often does. We have a guest speaker, Nancy Patton Mills, who is the chair of the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania. And we'll get into some of the details about the plans there for how we are going to win the state. I'm just going to say a few words, as I generally do, but today, instead of reading an inspirational quote, which I often do, or trying to be inspirational in some way, what I really felt the need to talk about was to see if I could help all of us get into the mind frame of why we are urging people to focus on Pennsylvania now and to come to the fundraiser that's coming up this week. And I was thinking about it last night about sort of how to get myself into the frame of mind. And I started thinking about all of the experiences all of us have had in our lives when we have a very, very important and complex project ahead of us that is going to require time to prepare for, and many tasks on a list, and perhaps other people that we have to rely on. And I was thinking about all the people in 31st Street, and there are so many different important projects that I imagine people have gone through in their lives, preparing for their first child, trying to pass the bar exam, taking graduate school exams or college exams, preparing to do something very brave, like hiking the entire Appalachian Trail, sailing across the ocean, whatever it is. I think most people go through a time in their lives when they decide to do something very, very important, and it takes a long time and it requires a lot of tasks. And I was thinking about the feeling of doing that and knowing that I had enough time and knowing that I was making good progress, and how satisfying it is to go to bed at night when you feel like I am on it. I'm on track. I've got people to rely on. I'm doing the best I can do to be ready for this and to succeed at it. And I'm also familiar with the feeling of running out of time and feeling like I am not at my best, that I'm cutting corners, that I'm not going to be able to do the perfect job because I haven't prepared well enough and I haven't given myself enough time to prepare. And there's nothing worse for me personally than feeling unprepared, or feeling that I had a chance to do something well, but I'm not going to do it as well as I could because I didn't leave myself enough time. So when I think about all those projects, they're all important to us, important to individual people. And I really do not know how to assess the importance of winning Pennsylvania in 2022. It just transcends really anything other than the 2020 election, doesn't transcend that, but it is an experience of feeling like we need all the time we can get. The project in Pennsylvania is complicated. It's going to rely on many people. It's going to have many tasks. And one thing Pennsylvania needs is time. And that's why we're starting to focus on Pennsylvania now. Because in January 2022, it's going to be it's just going to be too late. There is so much to be done. And there is so much that can be done that it is really important to start now so that Nancy, so that the people who she's going to be hiring as organizers, so the volunteers being organized by the organizers, so all of them feel when they look ahead to 2022, we have the time to do the best job. We have the time to do everything we need to do, and we're not going to cut corners, and we're not going to be slammed at the end thinking if only we had started earlier, we would be able to do a more successful job. So that's why we're doing it so early. We're going to hear from Jim, we're going to hear from Nancy about what it is they're going to try to do. But I guess I just want to convey my own personal determination to get this up and running soon, because I do not want them to run out of time, and I want them to do everything they can possibly do to win Pennsylvania. 3 pieces of good news to close with. First is there are enough voters who would vote Democrat in Pennsylvania to help us win the state if we turn them all out. We know Republicans are going to turn out. We know they're going to turn out, you know, in incredible numbers. They have in 2020. They're going to do it again. But we know that there are enough voters in Pennsylvania to win Democratic seats. We also know that the project that Pennsylvania Democratic Party is launching has been proven to be effective. So we know that we've got a winning strategy there. And the third piece of good news is that 31st Street never fails to raise the money that it wants to raise. And I just believe that we will raise it, and we will raise it in a timely fashion. And we will be able to give the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania what they need to get going soon, so that they are sleeping well and knowing that they're doing everything they need to do, and they have plenty of time to do it. So with that note, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Shelton to give us whatever information he has teed up for us. And in a little while, we will hear from Nancy Patton Mills, who will tell us in more detail about Pennsylvania. Jim?
Great lead in. Kind of obviates some of the things I'm going to say, but a little repetition is great, actually. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm the political analyst for 31st Street for folks who might not know me. I'm going to, as I always do, start by showing some slides. And can people see this? And can people hear me? Yes. Good. Okay. This is just a metaphor. We know we're hanging by a thread. Yes, we have these 3 things, presidency and the 2 houses of Congress, but we're just holding on by a thread, and we need to step up to preserve what we have and actually improve it. So one of the things I like to do, I'm going to talk a little bit about, there's a few slides here, more general interest. And, you know, I'm sure people read the New York Times and the Post and various things, and they see analysis and so forth. And I try to filter through a lot of that and just pick out a few things by reputable sources that I think are useful in terms of analysis of 2020. And for my money, organization called Catalyst is arguably the best organization out there for analyzing our data. And I have 3 slides I just thought I would show of what their analysis shows looking back. So this is just 2 bars, representations of the racial breakout of the Biden voters and the Trump voters. Remember, there were more Biden voters, so this is not numbers, but it's just the percentages. And if you sort of look across it, you see the obvious thing. Well, a lot of Trump voters are white, non-college. But if you look at the Biden voter, what's quite interesting is that actually the largest single group of voters for Biden were white, non-college voters. And, you know, we do think of the people of color and so forth are the backbones of our party, and in a way they are. But people know that I keep harping on this, that we need to be reaching out to these white non-college voters as well. Oops. Okay, and this just shows the increase overall. This is for national vote for president for both candidates. In terms of the increase, the overall increase was something like 12%, I think. But notice that the Latino increase was a lot more. Now they broke against us in terms of vote share, but there still is an increase there. We still got most of those voters. And also AAPI, the Asian American Pacific Islander, that's only 4% of the electorate currently, but it's a very, very important part for us in particular places like Gwinnett County in Georgia, for example, and other places. And then this is sort of the flip side in a way. It shows in terms of the citizens of voting age, you know, who actually voted. And what's interesting is this sort of red-orange group is a combination of people who are not registered or did not turn out. And as you can see, there are a large number of Black, Latino, and AAPI potential voters out there for us to enlist. Other is a small category of Native American and mixed race and so forth. So just a little bit of overall thinking. Then also there was in the Washington Post, the US House did Democrats did a deep dive on their findings from 2020, where they felt like they could have done better. And here's what just a few of their points. The polling was off. We knew that. The polling polled too few Republicans and too many Democrats, basically, to try to get a good representation. And we also know that in general, the Republicans turned out low propensity voters better than we did. And I think a lot of that was Trump, actually. And I'm hoping that that's not going to be so much the case, but it means we still have to go for that high priority group for us, which is the low propensity voters. The GOP attack ads worked. Notice I've got that in bold. My view, especially at the legislature level, again, this is for the US House candidates, but I think it's a general point is the GOP playbook has come out early with some kind of attack ads, a lot of times with some kind of racial overtone in the whistle, dog whistle in the background, and those kind of things do work. So we need to respond better to that. They say that they think they overreached by supporting too many challengers and not supporting enough the incumbents that lost. I actually don't think that's really the case. I think those incumbents had plenty of money, and I don't know what else they would have done to help them. I mean, they could have helped them with, I suppose, some other kinds of things, but there was plenty of money. But I think, and this I think is maybe the most important thing, and again, this is confirmation bias. I admit to it, folks. That too much emphasis on traditional TV, especially late, big problem. And it's a systemic problem in our industry, in the Democratic Party, in my opinion. Okay, here's our map that I've shown you before. Just, I like to have a visual. So here's Pennsylvania, of course, and Virginia we'll be talking about to some extent today. But also, again, we're not forgetting about North Carolina and Georgia, or maybe some of these other states we're keeping an eye on. So just to remind you of the overall strategy, Virginia elections, we'll be talking about that. But then there's this, it really relates to what Lisa was saying. This year is all about infrastructure, building the infrastructure for 2022. And actually a little bit leading up to 22. And that basically means supporting on the ground organizing. I've got in bold the Pennsylvania Dems, of course, which is the topic now, but we're also going to be supporting, hopefully later on, at least one grassroots groups in each of the other three states, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. And we've been spending a lot of time being very carefully talking to these folks to find the few gems that we think will give us the best opportunities. And I think we're getting pretty close. And my thanks to the country teams who've been working on this. Okay, so again, now shifting to Virginia, we have our 3-track strategy. 3, count them 3. So here's one, the direct support for candidates. That's going to start pretty soon. Once the primary is over, which is only, I guess, a couple weeks from now, 2.5 weeks, whatever. And we will have a slate of 4 or 5 challengers that we're going to start raising money for toward the end of the month. And I think that's really, we'll have more discussion on that. That's been our traditional strategy. I think it's been a great one, and we're going to continue that. We'll be doing our canvassing in the 3 areas. Michelle, who's going to be talking later, will be talking about how we're getting ready for that. And then we have our great digital voter outreach on the side, which pound for pound may be the best money that we raise, at least in Virginia. And there have been sort of 3 components of that. The first component was the filming, and our great Chris Bachman has already done filming in Richmond area and in Northern Virginia, and going to be doing Hampton Roads this week, I believe. And we also had a second increment that we've raised money successfully already for, which is to do a fair amount of digital outreach for one of our prime candidates, Deborah Gardner. And then there's a third component that we're starting to raise money for, which is to do sort of a generic kind of ads called Democrats Deliver. So that's all moving along quite well. Just to remind you the map of Virginia, these bullets, this sort of, I don't know what this is, a purple or something. That's where our candidates are. Also, recently come to light is the 100th district, which includes the eastern shore of Virginia, and also about over a third of it's Norfolk. I think we have a great candidate there. I think there's a good likelihood we will add that candidate as well. Oh, oops. And just remind us that I know Lisa's going to talk about this, but we're going to be having this picnic on June 12th. So hoping people will be coming to that, because it'll be so great to see people that we haven't seen in so long. All right, now shifting to the main event, which is of course Pennsylvania. And to remind everybody, just the components, and I think people mostly know this, but I'll do it anyway. We have that prime open US Senate seat. Just think if, we could lose a Senate seat. We could lose a Senate seat in New Hampshire. So we have these two good opportunities in Wisconsin, but also particularly in Pennsylvania. And obviously it's the most important Senate race maybe. But also if we had one or two more Democrats, we'd have a lot more flexibility in the Senate. Then the governor's race, okay, governor's race, big state. That's so important in Pennsylvania because we've got this horrible Republican legislature. And the Democratic governor keeps a check on them. And believe me, it's been a great check. I'm sure Nancy could testify to that as well. We have US House, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in a minute. And state Senate, half of them, state House, all of them, Supreme Court, which I think will hold the Supreme Court apparently in any case, but we need that margin. And there's other races, but here's the other kicker. Pennsylvania's just finished having their primary last Tuesday. And they have many important local races coming up in November. Mayors, city council, judges, even school boards. I mean, we've learned that we need to invest in the bench. And not only because we need the people, but having good candidates running brings out people, again, this power up concept that we've talked about so many times. But here's also why this is important, which is for our initiative to fund this new approach to organizing, year-round organizing in November. We want to get that up and running in time, well in time for these local races, so that we can, we can be kind of doing, not, I want to say practicing, but kind of like that. We can be learning in these local races, and we can have influence on these local races. So that's why the timing is really important to raise this money now on the front end. This is not something that's going to stretch out over many, many months. We need to get it going now. Okay. Here's just a little bit about the House. I like to show a map of Pennsylvania as much as anything. That's why I'm showing this. But basically there are 9 Democrats and 9 Republicans. But Pennsylvania is going to lose a congressperson. And it's not clear how the redistricting will happen. But, I think one possibility I've heard is possible is that they may sacrifice one of their districts kind of right in the middle. But if they do that, then they can kind of dilute the strength of a number of the Democrats, kind of in the East and in the West, and make it harder. So in fact, these 4 Democrats are potentially at risk. And we also always aspire that we might be able to knock off Scott Perry in District 10. So the House is really important too. Remember, we only have what I think at the moment it's about 6-seat margin, last I heard. Okay, I presented this last meeting, but I'm gonna do it again because I think it's important to have a sense of what do organizers do, and why is that so important? And I'm starting off with the longer term, but the shorter term is actually what typically happens is that younger people, usually large numbers of them, come in and help organize people to do voter outreach and a variety of things like that, kind of on a short-term kind of basis. But we're interested in a longer-term kind of voter outreach, which, you know, I'm not going to read off all these things, but canvassing, voter registration, a variety, training, fundraising, local issue and problem mobilization too, by the way. So that when you're, you know, there's, you know, I don't know what the issues are, you know, they're all different. It could be a toxic waste dump that they're trying to deal with. It could be lead in the water. It could be something about immunization or food banks or something like that. When people organize around these issues, you get a better buy-in and a better networking when it comes to election time. And then of course, at election time, you're doing, you know, GOTV type and earlier outreach than just the GOTV time, but voter outreach and ballot, all that stuff's important, but you want to have this platform, this infrastructure set up ahead of time. So why don't we have that now? Well, the situation now I describe as, you've seen this before, I think many of you, it's like a roller coaster. It's like everything gets set up, you know, a few months ahead of the election, depending upon what the election is. And all the staff get hired and, you know, the connections are made, money's raised, I mean, it's just, and then when the election's done, it all pretty much collapses. Or maybe that's too much of an exaggeration, but it's pretty close. So what we want to get to is something more like this. We want to get something that's more sustainable, that's massive, that has momentum and staying power. So that's why I've got this aircraft carrier as a different metaphor. Okay. So, you know, this Wisconsin Democrats neighborhood organizing model, in some ways it's not all that new, but I think they put it together in a really great way. And it just to show it, there's a state organizing director or kind of somebody in charge overall. They have a category called regional organizing director. So instead of hiring 100 organizers to try to cover the state, kind of toward the end of the last minute, they hired these regional directors. I think it was 10 they had to begin with. But the real guts of this is that the actual organizing is done by local volunteer leaders, and then they reach out. And those local volunteer leaders are there. They're not everywhere, but there are many of them out there in indivisible organizations, in precinct organizations, and so forth. So what these regional organizing directors do is really train, nurture, support, arm, if you will, these leaders and their contacts to do that organizing. All that list of things I was talking about. And so this is what's called then relational. You hear that word, relational organizing. The relation is that they already then know the people. They're not going away. They're not just coming in and getting hired and trying to reach people on Zoom and so forth. And the idea is it's year round, but also in Wisconsin, it's shown that it's really worked very well. Now, several election cycles, including the one that just occurred in April, it's done very well. And this is, again, at the micro level, this would be like your RODs, regional organizers, reaching out to the leaders who they recruit and train and so forth, and give tools for, and then those leaders reach out to the people that they know. Okay, so again, why is this such a game changer opportunity right now in Pennsylvania, I hear you ask? So this is a chance to do like a whole state. I mean, in an important state. I mean, of course, it won't cover every voter in the state, but the plan is to cover it pretty well. And there are advantages of working with the party, because the party does have a structure, it does have resources to build on. The party can work directly with candidates and campaigns. In federal elections, the C4s and the C3, they can't work with candidates directly, but the party can. They have better data typically that they can access directly and make available. They can attract a high caliber of staff. There is prestige, there is status in working for a state party. And as it happens, right now, there are many of those people available. They're coming right off for the 2020 election. And there are not that many jobs around. We're getting out there while it's good. And then there's going to be a smooth shift into the campaign mode later on. And the other advantage is that, again, we hope we can catalyze this for the longer term. So why hasn't this happened before? Those of us who have not been in politics that much, we assume the party did stuff and so forth. I never really understood, of course, inner workings, but the main problem, if you ask people, they say they don't have money. They basically say they'd like to do this, because we talk to other people in other states as well. And so then the question now is, why isn't there money? I mean, this is an effort. We saw hundreds of millions of dollars spent for Senate campaigns in Georgia. Why can't state parties raise money? And it really has to do with the paradigm is this isn't the entire explanation, but my opinion is a lot of it is there's so much focus on individual campaigns. So we have these great charismatic candidates, many of them, they're all trying to raise money. They all think that theirs is the most important thing that they're doing. And on our side, we like candidates. We Democrats love to fall in love with candidates. We kind of get the idea that there's an excitement, there's something tangible about supporting campaigns. And there just hasn't been this understanding and maybe outreach to funders. And also, of course, we're seeing a different kind of era now. We're seeing middle class and upper middle class Democrats really stepping up, like us, if you will, to contribute money to this kind of thing. So I'm hopeful that this will happen again. Okay, and advantages of working with SPAN. This is this State Party Advancement Network. Martha Lanning, they're going to match dollar for dollar for what we raise. And in fact, what they're saying is the fact that we're raising money helps them raise money too. So this is legitimate. We're actually, that's working. They're going to do something too. Their standard modus operandi is to have metrics and benchmarks that state parties agree to and that they follow. So, this is great. I mean, when you give money to a candidate, you don't get metrics and benchmarks and stuff like that, or very rarely. They also have some hands-on technical assistance by their staff, and they also have visibility, and they're working with 9 other states. So whatever's working in one state, provides some incentive and understanding for other states. Okay. So we're all in. That's why I'm calling this. We're all in now. I mean, this is not something, again, as Lisa, the point we're making, I'm trying to make is we want to raise a lot of money as soon as we can now, and not let it, it's not for, November and December. We want to get this going now. So we set an ambitious goal. What we want to do is with SPAN, 12 at the moment, it may shift a little bit, but 12 of these regional organizing directors. Our part is $350,000 and it'll be matched. And that'll be enough for those folks, but it needs to be front end loaded and the timing is crucial. And so our aspiration is to raise $220,000 at the May 26th fundraiser. And fortunately, you don't necessarily have to wait for the fundraiser, because we're going to put the donation site in the chat. Aaron's going to do that. And we would really appreciate any donations that you'd be willing to give us toward that 220,000. So with that, I'm going to stop and introduce our headliner, which is Nancy Patton Mills. Again, our common practice is we don't, read off a lot of the sort of history of the people. We let them, our guests, introduce themselves. I did talk to her yesterday, and I can tell you, though, that I feel like she's part of a new breed of state party chairpersons. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim. And yes, we did speak yesterday. I told you that I would tell your guests a little bit about myself, but the surprise that I promised you is to point out this flag behind me, which is a 48-star flag. My mother had this flag. She was a Roosevelt Democrat. And in our family, we've been in Democratic politics for a long, long time, as you can tell by the flag. I used my mother's full name. A lot of people say, why are you so pretentious to be Nancy Patton Mills? And I used my mother's name, and she was Nancy Patton. So we have been dedicated to public service within my family for a long time, and always with the Democratic Party. I was so inspired with what Lisa said also in her opening remarks. I know that a lot of you are new to what needs to be done to elect people within your state, within your districts. And as a leader in the Democratic Party, I started by being the chair of Allegheny County. And Jim has told me that he was here in Allegheny County campaigning for Connor Lamb and Pam Iovino. And as the chair of Allegheny County, I'd like to just go back to 2016 for 1 minute. And we don't like to go there very often, but a little bit. In 2016, Allegheny County outperformed any other city, any other county in the Rust Belt for Hillary Clinton. We knew we had outperformed Barack Obama's numbers. So we knew that we had something going here that was important. We also knew that it was coming from grassroots. Our leaders in the party came to me and said, Nancy, we have to reach out to some of the indivisible groups, grassroots organizers, and find out how we can bring them into the party. So I was always, as Jim said, a new breed and an old. So I have a little bit of both going for me, Jim. But we adapted to what was happening in Democratic politics in Allegheny County. And if you remember, the first of the blue wave was Connor Lamb. And Connor Lamb ran in a red district right here in Western Pennsylvania. And as far as we knew, he didn't have a chance of winning it. There were 3 very, very red counties along with a portion of Allegheny County. So we brought in groups from all over the state that made phone calls for Connor Lamb. He was the right candidate for the district. That was the most important thing that we had. He was the most authentic candidate I'd ever seen running for a seat. So what he said to me in my office the first day I met him is exactly what you would hear from Connor today. And to me, that's very important in a candidate. So I became the state party chair. The governor asked me to take on those duties as the state party chair in 2018. And you remember that was the year that we had some redistricting here in Pennsylvania. And how important was that? We had only 5 Democrat congressional people out of 18. And after redistricting in a level playing field and volunteers all over the state, we knew that we could equal the Republicans. So we are 9-9 now. Now we are going to lose a seat. We don't know which one it's going to be. We're planning for the worst and planning to, and if it's going to be not 9-9, but 9-8, we're planning on it being 9 Democrats and 8 Republicans. And I think we can do that. We look at that South Central seat, how important that is, that Perry seat. I understand Eugene DePasquale is looking at coming back in. Strongest candidate, I think that we can win that seat. So I did want to share a little bit about my background with you so you know that I'm not new to this game, but I am adaptable to the new Democratic Party. And I think when you look at Pennsylvania and see what happened here with Donald Trump, it was going to be a challenge, no matter who was the chair. But we knew with our staff and with our volunteers that if we had the right people in all 67 counties, we could bring those numbers up and beat Donald Trump. Now, how did we know that? We had a governor's race, we had a US Senate race, and we ran a Pennsylvania election. We did not run a national election to elect our governor and our US Senator. So Governor Wolf and Senator Casey won by landslides. They brought up numbers in some of these counties that were so red that they don't have any Democrats elected, but they brought the numbers up. And whenever I would be on television speaking to the press with the Republican leadership, they were talking about the caravans and the wall. And I said, you know what? We're not going to talk about the caravan. We're not talking about the wall. We're going to talk about education, healthcare, and jobs. So it worked. Governor Wolf and Senator Casey won by landslides. They were tremendous candidates for and spokespeople for the state of Pennsylvania. Also, such gentlemen, and their ethics were not of question. And some of the Republicans, I might say, were a little bit questionable. So that was really important for us. And at that time, we had a coordinated campaign. Now, after winning a big election like that with a coordinated campaign and voter protection all over the state, you would think that maybe we could sit back and rest a little bit. No, that's never happens in Pennsylvania, not under my watch. People say to me after every election, are you going to be able to rest now? Are you going to be able to relax a little bit, Nancy? This is an off year. We only have a few judicial candidates. Not so. We work day and night, 24/7. What you are talking about, Jim, and bringing field organizers and regional organizers into Pennsylvania is exactly what we need to keep the momentum going. It's so important that we don't just have an election and then sit back and relax and go on TV and brag about, oh, we've won. We don't do that. We plan for the next election. So we were ready when 2020 came. When 2020 arrived, we were ready. We had proven ourselves with Governor Wolf and Senator Casey. We had proven ourselves with 9 Democratic congressional candidates who all won and leveled the playing field in Pennsylvania. So we were ready for 2020. How did we do it? We did it by going into every county, bringing up the numbers by 2 or 3%, even in areas where they had never done that before. We knew that we had lost Hillary by 2 votes per precinct, approximately. So I would go into a county that didn't have any Democrats elected and said, can you get me 2 more people in your precinct to vote this next election? If you can do that, in Clinton County, then we can win everywhere. So we did not focus just on Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. That's not in my playbook. We competed everywhere. And I think that when Joe Biden won, everybody thought, well, I talked to Tom Perez and everybody, and they'd point to me and they'd say, it's up to you, Nancy. No, not up to Nancy. It's up to everyone in Pennsylvania to make this happen. Now, as a chair, I have probably empowered more people than any other chair has. All of our regional directors and our staff members are perfect for their region and perfect for what their directions are supposed to be. And they feel confident as they go into a neighborhood that they can make a decision. They aren't waiting for me to micromanage every little corner of the state. We have people that understand Pennsylvania. We have just hired, for the first time, a rural director. Now you would wonder, with 67 counties, and most of them are rural, why there was never a rural director in Pennsylvania. We've had a rural caucus, but they have no power. They're just a caucus. So what we've done is we've hired a director who was born and raised in rural Pennsylvania, who can relate to rural Pennsylvania and come back to us, and he can tell us what we need to do. We aren't going to be sitting in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia telling him what needs to be done. This is important. We also have a Latino director. And if you remember, after Maria, we had 240 some thousand Puerto Ricans come to southeastern Pennsylvania. So we knew that we had that outreach and how important that was to get out the vote. So I know, I think Jim or Lisa mentioned the AAPI. We've been working very, very closely with the AAPI group, trying to get a caucus here in the state. 4% of our vote is in the AAPI community. And we just recently had a special election in Scranton, and the Indian community was instrumental in making sure we won that, and also securing our nominee that eventually did win. So I'm really excited to be here with you today. As Jim was talking and Lisa was talking, and I could see all of your faces, I thought of 1,000 things that I could tell you. I wanted to make sure that my mind was just racing to jump in and say, that's exactly right, Lisa, that's what we need to do. Or Jim, that's what we're trying to do. We're very excited here. We were extremely happy to have Joe Biden coming from Scranton, Pennsylvania. That helped our 67 county strategy. And we're just thrilled to have the President of the United States, a native Pennsylvanian. I think that this carries over now. Everything that Joe Biden is doing plays right into our playbook. There isn't any question about it. He is bringing health care to Pennsylvania. He is bringing jobs to Pennsylvania. He is working with labor unions and empowering people all over the state. And people, it's starting to get that feel, that feeling that things are right now, that they were wrong before. We knew they were wrong, but now I think people are seeing how wrong it was and how good it is now. We work very closely with the Democratic National Committee. The Democratic National Committee is invested in Pennsylvania with voter protection and communications director. And how important is that? We had a communications director, a coordinated campaign with the DNC, with the Biden campaign, and through Zoom, we did 48 press conferences. We were able to go into every time a Trump person stepped into Pennsylvania, we did a press conference and came up with the leaders in the community, that bench that Jim was talking about, the bench, the school board members, the county council members, the mayors, those people that could speak for the community and speak to the press. And we counteracted all of the messages that entire Trump family brought to Pennsylvania. Every time I turned around, there was another one coming to Washington, PA, or somewhere close to me. One time I was on a Zoom and I heard his helicopter go over, and I thought, ooh, I can't believe this. So Trump landed at the Greater Pittsburgh Airport, and his helicopter went over my house in a Zoom. And that motivates me even more. So I'm certainly available to talk to you more specifically and any questions that you might have. And also on this call today is Jason Henry, our executive director, and he's been in contact with Jim and maybe some of you, and he'll be here to answer specific details of data that we've collected or other hires that we're making. So I'll stop there and turn it back to Jim or Lisa to see if there are questions.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. Just such good information, very inspiring. Just love the fact that you're getting 2 votes out of every little district. That's wonderful. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron to curate the questions. He's been tracking questions in the chat.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you, Nancy, for your visit. And we have a couple of questions that have come up in the chat. One question is, actually it's a two-parter. I'll give you one part at a time, about the Wisconsin Neighbor to Neighbor project and how the Pennsylvania project relates to that. So the first one is the Wisconsin Democratic Party raised millions of dollars in high-profile fundraisers in 2020, like having the cast of the movie Princess Bride reading their script. Can the Pennsylvania Dems do something similar to bring in big dollars to finance long-term support?
Well, yes, and I would say that anything coming out of Wisconsin probably had some trickle down from Martha at some point when she was the chair. And I know that she's a great organizer, and I know that this will work in Pennsylvania. I know that Wisconsin, I think they raised around $6.5 million or something with the Princess Bride and some of the other events that they had. We were very fortunate that Rob Reiner did do Spinal Tap with Pennsylvania right before the election in October and raised $600,000 for Pennsylvania. And that was a tremendous help. That was money that when that came in the door, that money that you don't expect to have was put to good use. And we're extremely qualified to be open to all suggestions on how to raise money. We're very creative. We like to do things that are new. I'm one of those older people that loves change. So whenever they came to me with Spinal Tap, I said, oh, I love this. So I did a little opening for Spinal Tap. I had to memorize a lot of lines from that movie. And if some of you haven't seen that movie, I close by saying, and Pennsylvania's going to take it to 11. So for those of you who know Spinal Tap, you know how crazy I was that night. But I hope that answers your question.
Great, yes. I'm going to have to watch Spinal Tap again. Next question from the same person, from Ellie. I thought I heard the Wisconsin State Democratic Party director say they really try to hire local people as their organizers. Will that be a factor in hiring the regional directors in PA? I think you talked a little bit about working with people on the ground, but are you, is that a factor when you hire your regional directors?
Now, we've always tried to hire people that are familiar with the area. I mentioned that whenever I was speaking earlier about the rural caucus chair. And that was very competitive. We had 3 or 4 people that were so qualified for that position. But what we did is we looked at the one person that was born and raised in rural Pennsylvania, not someone who was new to it. And it was extremely important to us that we have people that are familiar with the players. When you come into a county, if you don't know that one person that's been in politics for 50 years, if you don't know that one person to call, like when the president's coming into town, and to make that call and say, we have Angie Gillaretto here in Allegheny County, and we'll call Angie and just say, Angie, we want you to know, the president's coming to Pittsburgh. I don't know if you'll be able to see him, but we just wanted you to know. So we want people who can relate to those strong individuals within each region that make it happen.
Great. Okay, another question just came in. In 2020, there was a lot of money going into the elections from big money donors who wrote big checks. It seems like that they should see Pennsylvania as critical. Are these big donors donating, waiting, or just closing their checkbooks?
Maybe Jason, we'll see if Jason has a thought on that.
I'm going to let Jason talk about that. Where are you, Jason? About our donors.
Yeah, no, I apologize. I'm actually in a car. I'm actually trying to house hunt in Pittsburgh. So to that question, right now a lot of our donors, quite honestly, had some fatigue from last year, and they're also being hit up again because, as Jim mentioned earlier, all of our courts are up for grabs this fall. We have really competitive judicial elections, and then there's a whole other thing that the chairwoman and I could go on about the significance of what we did in 2015
I think we lost Jason. He was going to talk about winning the courts. And by winning the courts in 2015, that's how we won all the cases. Do you remember last year, whenever we were sued here in Pennsylvania, I think we had 30 lawsuits. And the one case in all of America that was lost was a Commonwealth Court case here in Pennsylvania, controlled by the Republicans who didn't even read the brief. Is Jason back?
Mm,
Doesn't seem like it.
yeah.
He's driving.
So,
Okay.
so these races, these judicial races are key. And in Wisconsin too, there was a very high profile victory in the, for a liberal judge in the Supreme Court there. And then that ended up being very pivotal. Again,
Yes.
a similar situation with one of these crazy.
Yeah, and our Supreme Court Justice Maria McLaughlin, our candidate, was not primaried. So we're really working double time and overtime. Even though she's come off the Superior Court, she's extremely well known. She's in line to win this. We still have to make sure that we have that name out there, because when you aren't primaried, the Republicans had a little bit of a battle, so they talked about each other and had some name recognition. So we are keyed in on the Supreme Court justice race with Maria McLaughlin, and we have a couple of outstanding, we're still counting some votes here. Our Superior Court candidate is a Common Pleas Court judge in Philadelphia, Tamika Lane, and then we're still counting votes in Commonwealth Court. Commonwealth Court is where we really need to pick up. If we could win these two Commonwealth Court cases, we would come within one of having control of the Commonwealth Court. That doesn't give us control, but it gets us closer. So it's very important to us, and we are focusing on mayor races across the state also. We have incumbents that were defeated in the primary, new people coming into mayoral races right here in Allegheny County and Pittsburgh. Our incumbent mayor was defeated by a state representative, Ed Gainey. We'll be working with Ed to make sure everybody knows how terrific he is. And so we're watching every race in Pennsylvania, county executive in Erie. We just had a special, I told you, we won for the state Senate. So we're counting those state senators to see how many we have to take the majority back and make Jay Costa our majority leader rather than the minority leader of the state Senate.
Nancy, since we did lose Jason, I'm wondering if you could just finish off his thought about how the big donors are doing and what you anticipate from them.
Yeah, I think that the big donors, they focus on the big races. So right now you're in a primary cycle. So when you're in a primary cycle, it's hard to attract people to get excited. I mean, we're coming up on Memorial Day, just had a primary for judicial races. To get people interested, to get those donors, to get a Rob Reiner or someone to come back into Pennsylvania, we have to tell the story. You're helping us do that. The story is that we cannot take our ball and go home. We cannot stop fighting. We have to keep the momentum that we have from last year carried into this year to carry into next year. Very thin margin in the House of Representatives. And we would love to be the state to give Joe Biden that cushion in the US Senate, to give him those 51 senators. And we have terrific people already announcing for US Senate in Pennsylvania. And we know there will be more announcing this summer. So we're really watching that very, very carefully. And the governor. Yeah.
Just to drive that point home, there's a whole slew of very prominent people running for these big offices, and they're raising the money. They're, if you will, excuse the expression, they're sucking up all the money to a large extent. That people just don't tend to. I mean, there are donors to the Democratic Party, but there are also a lot of ongoing expenses and so forth that these folks have over.
The story that we've been telling and will continue to tell with your help is that the state party is the important vehicle to success. because everything else is regional, and they don't all understand what the left hand doesn't always know what the right hand's doing. When you're sitting in Harrisburg and you're looking at all 67 counties, what you see is the big picture. We see what needs to be done in every corner of this state. We know that if we can elect somebody to city council in a red district, that we're building a bench possibly to get a state representative down the road. So we are the vehicle that that needs to be sold. This is where the money needs to come. We will help, whoever is our nominee will be there to help for their U.S. Senate seat. I understand what they're doing. They're raising hundreds of thousands of dollars now to show each other who is the most popular one in the group. And we understand that. But this is the earliest that I've ever seen someone coming in and raising money. This is really early for next week.
Now, Nancy, before we let you go, we have one final question. We want to thank you for coming by, but this is our last one, just came in on the chat, and it relates to telling the story. Grassroots groups, says this person, are about issues, not simply electing Democrats. How do you keep these grassroots community groups engaged year round, year after year?
Well, first of all, we reach out to them and we ask them if they will help. We understand that there are independents that don't support us 100% of the time. We're looking at percentages. For instance, with Connor Lamb, there were so many people from all over the state, from other states, that made phone calls for him. So we reach out to those grassroots groups that are interested in helping Pennsylvania. And we've been very, very successful. A lot of people within indivisible groups ran for state committee 4 years ago. So I think that's going to happen this time too. I think you're going to see more progressive people running for state committee offices. And of course that builds the party in a little different way. But I like the party the way it is now compared to the way it was when my mother was on the state committee and my father, because that it was all top down then. You know, they were under Governor Davy Lawrence, and whatever Davy said, that's what everybody did. So now it's not what Nancy says, it's what we say. So the we paradigm is alive and well here in Pennsylvania.
Well, great. Thank you so much. I put the link in the chat one more time to donate to this effort. And of course, we have a fundraiser coming up for it as well. Thanks again. We'll give you our virtual applause. And I will turn the mic back over to Lisa.
Thank you so much, Nancy and Jason. Thank you. Thank him for coming. And Mary, did you want to jump in?
Well, yes, thank you. So Wednesday, the 26th, which is what, 3 days from now, we're having a mega fundraiser for this project. The total we want to raise is $350,000. As Jim said, SPAN is going to match that dollar for dollar. But we're hoping to raise $220,000 at this fundraiser. And that's obviously a lot of money. Jim, you've had checks coming in. Can you tell me how much with the checks plus the Act Blue contributions we've raised so far?
About $40,000 so far.
About 40,000. Wow. And this is so early. That's just really encouraging. So that leaves us 180,000 more to go. What, Jimmy, what percentage is 40 of 220?
I don't know.
Well, whatever it is.
18.
18%. Okay.
I don't know.
That's almost 20%. That's awesome. So Aaron's put the donate link up in the chat room one more time. Going back to what Lisa said at the beginning of the meeting, this is what I know we can do in other states so well. We can canvass and we can raise money. And I am just incredibly inspired by the concept behind this fundraiser. I'll say one other thing, and there's no limit to how much money you can give to the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. It's not like a candidate, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, it's $2,700 for a federal candidate, correct?
For this thing, it's 10,000 per person for the federal. 20,000.
There is a limit to what you can give to the Pennsylvania Democratic Party?
They have two accounts. There's a federal account, there's a state account. The federal account is much better for them. So, but the first 10,000 can go to the federal account, and then and then beyond that, it's unlimited for the state account.
Okay. Well, I just find that very freeing to know that where there is a person who has a deep pocket, this is your chance to make a real big difference. And I'll tell you what Jim has said to me a couple times recently. He says, you know, the stock market's way out. And he says it just in that tone of voice. So if you are a person who has stocks, and of course, many, many people don't, this would be a wonderful investment for your democracy. Enough said. Thank you.
Well, I'll just take 30 seconds to say, I've kind of tried to help us get to good places for now 4 years. And I feel like from a prospective basis, I mean, we backed into kind of Georgia. We happened to be at a situation where it was really a great investment. But to me, this is the very best opportunity I've seen in 4 years for us to do our support. So I'm definitely weighing in quite heavily myself. Over.
And I'll just say one more thing, and that is we set a goal of raising $35,000 for Connor Lamb, who Nancy just talked about extensively. And well, I should say I set a goal of raising $35,000 for Connor Lamb, and there were people in 31st Street who thought that that was an unrealistic goal. And in fact, we raised $37,000. And 31st Street has never failed to meet a goal that we have set. So I hope all of you will help us one more time get over that 220,000 that we're aiming to raise by Wednesday. And you know, there's always money that comes trickling in afterwards. So it could be, you know, as much as a week afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Okay, we're going to turn to Virginia. And Michelle Hainbach, who is one of our Virginia state leaders, is going to present a few slides. Mary, did you make her a co-host so she can share her screen, or who's sharing the?
Aaron, I think Aaron is going to.
Oh, Aaron's going to do it. Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, Aaron.
I am.
Okay.
Actually, Jim's going to do it.
Oh,
Jim's going to do it. Okay, thank you, Jim. All right. Hi. Yes. Hi. I'm Michelle Hainbach. I'm one of the co-leads for our Virginia team. And in addition to being on the ground in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, helping to start with off-year infrastructure building, 31st Street is going to have hopefully a very large active team of volunteers on the ground in Virginia this year, because in Virginia there are elections this November. Do you want to put up a slide, Jim? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we want to win in Virginia this fall. Virginia is unusual in that it actually has statewide elections this fall. We have the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general races, and the entire House of Delegates is up for election, 100 seats. We are going to hold an educational informational event on June 10th at 7 o'clock. Where we will share with you the results of the Virginia primary, which is happening 2 days earlier on the 8th. We're going to introduce you to announce the 31st Street slate of candidates for Virginia State House, mostly challengers, possibly an incumbent or two. And we're going to talk about ways that you can work with us together, helping these people to win seats and keep Virginia blue. It is not a given that Virginia will stay blue. The Republicans are very motivated. They've been out of power for a couple of years there. And there's going to be a lot of attention both within the state and from outside the state on the races in Virginia. So at this event on the 10th, we're going to, as I said, talk about the candidates, talk about the districts, have a tentative calendar where you can look ahead and think about how you can help, whether it be through phone banking, texting, postcard writing or on the ground canvassing following COVID. Hopefully, you know, we will definitely will be following public safety guidelines in terms of knocking on doors. This year, we hope to have training available via Zoom prior to going out. And so I'm just hopeful that you will join with us if you're interested in this. Next slide, I think. We will be able to get you information on how you can sign up to work over the summer and into the fall with us. Aaron, can you, or Dan, can you put the link in where people, thank you. So you can sign up on our form to get more information, and we will be in touch with you with the Zoom link before the meeting on the 10th. And as Mary said, or Lisa said, this primary election is, I think it's 2 weeks from Tuesday, and our meeting is 2 weeks from Thursday on the 10th. We're going to have breakout rooms, and there'll be a chance to ask questions also. That's about it.
So did Aaron put this link in the chat for the?
We can try to do that right now. Let's see. Either Dan or Aaron can put it in if I can't do it.
We will put the link to volunteer for Virginia also in the newsletter, which will be out in another day or so. So you will
There
have.
it is. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Michelle. Wonderful. Yeah, the Virginia team is up and running, and it welcomes members now. They're really opening their doors. So anybody who wants to get involved in Virginia can be on their team. The leaders are Michelle Hainbach, Lynn Fletcher, George Hastings, and Jim. So it's a great team, and you are all invited to join. Okay, before we sign off, any comments? I just wanted to open to any comments about Nancy Patton Mills. Any thoughts about her presentation?
Lisa, we had one question that came up that not sort of related to Nancy, but about the redistricting in Pennsylvania. And maybe Jim knows the answer. Do you know if Governor Wolf has any veto power over the redistricting?
You know, I can't remember. I think they have a different process for the legislature redistricting and for the federal district. I think the answer is yes to that question. I think the answer is yes.
Michael, do you know?
I think so too, that for the congressional districts, it's the state legislature and then the governor has veto power. But for the state legislative districts, it's a commission.
Okay. Okay, so just wanted to, before we finish up with some just news about the picnic, any comments about the presentation or any other questions for Jim?
Anything else? Open mic, anything?
Yeah, open mic.
You can raise your hand. You can put something in the chat.
You can just unmute and say hello. Yeah, Michael.
I just wanted to reiterate what I put in the chat, which is it's a result of my reflections when we went into Pennsylvania in 2018. A lot of times in the areas, one had the sense that these people hadn't seen any Democratic Party presence in the past. And so to me, it seems one of the key benefits of this idea of having year-round local organizers who work both on issues that are important to people in that area as well as on elections is that it would change the understanding of what the state Democratic Party was. That this is a party that has a presence in people's lives and is working year-round to help improve their lives. And that would make a big difference. It's not just coming in a transactional way before an election asking for people's vote. There's an ongoing relationship with the party.
Thanks, Michael. Michael is a team leader for Pennsylvania. Any other comments, questions?
Just, you were going to say something with the picnic.
I'm going to pass that to Claudia. I just didn't know if anybody else had anything to say. Yeah, Victoria.
I was just wondering, in terms of reaching out to people to attend this upcoming event and ones in the coming months, given that it is off year, given that we're not focused on candidates, what have people found are the more persuasive arguments for getting people to get excited and get engaged?
Well, Mary Pence has found, what is it, Mary? 42 co-hosts for the Wednesday night fundraiser. 42 co-hosts, which is a record. I think the previous record was like 24. And that was during 2020. So Mary, what is the most persuasive message you have used to get co-hosts?
Well, I think it all goes back to relational. The term of relationships. It depends on who you're asking and how you ask. So what I do is I individually address each invitation to an event or fundraiser. So I say, "Dear Jim," rather than sending it out to 100 people at once. And then I write a personal note and I say something that connects me with that person. Now, I think you're asking a more political question rather than a relational question. And I think what you're asking is, what is it that motivates someone when the election is still so far away? And I don't know that I have an answer to that. Jim, do you have one?
Well, I mean, again, a lot of it depends upon the audience. I think the argument that Lisa made that we're building this infrastructure and it's a long-term thing, and that's how you win ultimately. It's not just some last minute, I don't know, emotional thing that sweeps over you. Although emotions are important too. I mean, the fact, it's scary. What the Republicans are doing is pretty scary. So you can play that card too. Have you been trying already, Victoria, to reach out to people or?
Well, I'm a little hamstrung because I'm a federal employee, but I've been trying to sort of dodge and weave with people. I've talked to some people in person, and I wanted just in these last couple of days to be a little more systematic about it. But Mary's very simple tactic of doing this on an individual basis is very important, I think.
I think that's a really important. You send out 100 emails to people, and they know that it's going to 100 people. And but if you send up, I saw you at the soccer game or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You sort of connect with people. Oh, I know your mother was very concerned about blah blah, whatever. I think that happened. Ellie wants to say something too.
I feel like it's so frightening how well organized the Republicans are, how sophisticated they are, how they have evangelical Christians so organized. They represent like maybe 35% of the population, but they get their people to vote and they don't take any breaks. And all this legislation, it's in state legislatures that could affect vote counts. It's very frightening. And to me, the fact that it's off year shouldn't stop anybody. It's just how to get others to appreciate that, because you get sick of these doomsday things, but I don't know, it's just really true that they'll stop at nothing. They will stop at nothing. And so we just have to keep fighting. And I don't know how you get that across to people, but it's so important. And the early organizing, coming in 2 weeks before an election, that's a big thing that Democrats do wrong, pouring all this money too late. So this early organizing, it's so important. That's all I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is George Hastings, and I'd like to follow up on Ellie's point that it's true that the Republican Party has out-organized us in the last 10 years or more. And this is the most exciting project, I think, that I've worked on in the years I've been with 31st Street, because it's a chance to really change how the party works. We've seen what the people in Wisconsin did. They changed how the party worked over a 4-year period, and it worked a lot better in 2020 than it did in 2016. And we won that crucial swing state, and it seems to be working again. They won a crucial election just last month. And we have the chance to do this again in another really crucial state, Pennsylvania. And I think maybe it could catch on what SPAN is doing, what we're trying to get Pennsylvania to do, to more states. And maybe we can change the way our party operates in its state organizations to match what the Republicans are doing, or to do better than they've been doing. It's a real opportunity to change the game and tilt the field in our favor for once. So that's why I agree with Jim that it's the most exciting project that I've seen that 31st Street is doing.
I think the other sort of the, I think everything has, everything there's always yin and yang. I mean, there's always the light and the dark. And I think it's after 4 years of Trump, I think, and a year of the pandemic, I think so many of us are just in sort of a mindset of sort of fear-based motivation and just kind of a gloomy sense that, we got to fight, and when are things going to get better, and what's going to happen next. But I also feel like, my husband Dre and I have been watching these inspirational movies about individual normal people who make huge change in their state. And I feel like 31st Street is just an example. And there's so many grassroots groups. I mean, Mary has organized this coalition of grassroots groups that we're now connected with. And there are just so many normal, regular old people who were not necessarily political before 2016. And they're all doing unbelievable things. Like, we just keep meeting these people from all over the country who are doing unbelievable things. And they're just like us. They're not politicians and they're not fundraisers, but they're just doing incredible work. So I feel like the other side of it is, we can do whatever we want to do. We just have to do it. We have to decide that we're going to do it, and then we need to do it. And I kind of feel like that's what Biden is doing. He's just going out there and saying, I'm going to do this, and now I'm doing it. And I said I was going to do it by July 4th, and I'm done, doing it. And here it is. And now we did it. And that's just like, that's the model. So I kind of feel like I want to stay positive. We can definitely win Pennsylvania. We just have to do it. And we can win Virginia. We can protect Virginia. So we are going to do it. Claudia, do you want, I don't know if you had something else to say in addition to the picnic, and
No, that's
I'll
fine.
tee you up for the picnic.
Yeah, so yay, picnic. Let's hear for the picnic. The 12th of June, 5 o'clock to 7:30. And, we're talking about folks just like us making a difference. And these are the kind of events where we get to meet other folks just like us and feel like we're not one person who's, scraping our way up from the abyss. We will meet other folks. I would love to see us kind of have mini caucuses where we kind of know where neighbors are that we could reach out to and work with and maybe canvas with. So this is a great opportunity, and we are calling it the Welcome Back Picnic because we're going to do the impossible of actually meeting in person. Now, we do stipulate that you need to have been vaccinated, and that'll be the honor system. But it'll be great. It'll be great to rub shoulders. Now, what do you need to do to get in? Well, first of all, you need to RSVP. We have a plucky group of 3 folks that are putting this together. So Lisa and Shirley Hong will accept your requests for invites. Do you know, Aaron or Jim, can you put my little note up? I put both of those emails in the chat.
I'll scroll up and get them.
A little bit, yeah, that'd be great. And I know Lisa's going to be sending out at least a couple more invites, right, over the next couple weeks. So be looking out for them. Respond to the invite, and then we have some really, really cool technology where you can sign up and tell us what you're going to bring. That'll be part and parcel of the invite. The location is 4500 Leland Street in Chevy Chase, and I've been told that there's parking about a block away. All this will be, shared with you in detail once you do RSVP, so don't be late for that. And we have to shout out to Amy Kossoff because it's her beautiful backyard that we're going to be having our picnic in. And once again, this is exciting for us, and be on the lookout for that invite. Or Aaron, did it come up at all? I guess not. I can just, Lisa, just want to give your email, and I can try to give Shirley's off of this.
Yeah, it's in the chat.
You did find it? Okay.
But you don't even have to worry about it. You'll get it in the newsletter that's coming in a day or so, and you'll get it again in a week. So you'll have the invite. It says that we only have room for 100 people. There's a COVID limitation, but we have, I think, like less than 50 now. So there's plenty of room. So feel free to RSVP.
All right, that's it.
Thanks, Claudia.
Yep.
Okay, the last thing I just want to mention, there are a number of amazingly inspirational documentaries about individuals who create unbelievable change in their state. And my husband, Dre, I'm going to ask him to just say a word. We are organizing something with one of these films, and it will be a 31st Street event that's very flexible, so it will be easy for you to participate. Dre, do you want to just say a couple words about what it's going to be and what the name of the film is, and then we'll send lots of information out about it in June, so you don't have to write anything down now.
Sure. The film is Reclaim Idaho. It's how a group of people organized in Idaho, this is a very unlikely state, to pass Medicaid expansion. They did it against all odds, and this is a documentary about it that I think would be wonderful for us to watch and then also to discuss afterwards.
So what's going to happen is we're going to send out an Eventbrite link in my newsletters. We'll send it out several times. So there will be a link. The movie will be available to all 31st Street members for a week in July. We'll figure out the week. And you can watch it anytime. You'll just click the link. There's going to be a very, very modest fee to watch the movie. That will be part of the link that you click. So you'll just pay directly to Eventbrite. You can watch it at your leisure, and then we will set a date and time about a week later where anybody can Zoom to discuss the film. And we are inviting the producers of the film to join our Zoom. And so we'll be able to talk to like how they got the idea and how they learned about these amazing people who traveled around Idaho in this van and passed Medicaid expansion. Like they're normal people who just got ticked off because nobody could cover their medical expenses in Idaho that they knew. So it's just great.
Plus, we may also have the people that did that were the stars of the film as well, which would make it even more interesting than just the producers.
Yeah. So this is the first time that we're doing this. If it's a success, which basically means a few people come to our Zoom and enjoy the movie, we'll do it, every few months, because there's a list of these amazing movies that Dre and I have watched, and we love every one of them. And they're fun to watch, and they just make you feel good, and they make you feel like you can do anything. So we'll do it again if people enjoy it.
So popcorn and politics, Lisa.
Popcorn and politics. There you go.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. And we will hopefully feel free to attend our fundraiser Wednesday night, whether you're a co-host or not. And we'll look for my newsletter with all the news. There's news about all sorts of things coming up.